Welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching the news tonight. I'm Frank Razan Pereira. Here are the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses Maldivian Parliament. People's Majlis says state sponsorship of terror biggest threat facing the world. Urges world community to join hands to fight terrorism and radicalization. Ensures Maldives of full support from India. India-Maldives ink 6 agreements to boost ties. Prime Minister Modi, Maldivian President Ibrahim Mohamed Soli hold bilateral talks in Malé. PM Modi conferred with Maldives' highest honour, Rule of Nishan-Izzuddin. Disrupting Parliament, clear negation of the vision of constitution makers, asserts Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu, expresses concern over political discourse reaching a new low, urges lawmakers to ensure smooth functioning of Parliament. And after a week's delay, monsoon arrives in Kerala. IMD predicts heavy rainfall in isolated places over Kerala, Lakshadweep and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Says heatwave conditions likely to continue in north and central India next week. Our top focus on the bulletin this evening is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the Maldives. Well, on his first foreign visit after being re-elected as the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi arrived in the Maldives on Saturday. Modi was received at Malé Airport by Maldivian Foreign Minister Abdullah Shahid. The Prime Minister also inspected the Guard of Honour. Prime Minister Modi and Maldives President Ibrahim Mohamed Soli held delegation-level talks. The two sides signed 6 MOUs on cooperation in the field of hydropower, health and establishment of passenger and cargo services by sea. A technical agreement was also signed on sharing white shipping information between the Indian Navy and Maldives National Defence Force.
पीपल सेंट्रिक और समावेशी विकास तथा सुशासन की हमारी जिम्मेदारी और भी महत्वपूर्ण हो जाती है। मैंने अभी राष्ट्रपति सोली के साथ बहुत विस्तृत और उपयोगी विचार विमर्श किया। हमने आपसी हितों के क्षेत्रीय और वैश्विक मुद्दों के साथ साथ हमारी द्विपक्षीय सहयोग की विस्तार से समीक्षा की है। हमारी साझेदारी की भावी दिशा पर हमारे बीच पूर्ण सहमति है। $800 मिलियन की लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट के अंतर्गत विकास कार्यों के नए रास्ते भी खुले हैं। भारत और मालदीव के बीच विकास साझेदारी को और मजबूत करने के लिए हमने मालदीव के आम नागरिकों को लाभ पहुंचाने वाली परियोजनाओं पर ध्यान केंद्रित किया है। आज हमारा द्विपक्षीय सहयोग मालदीव में सामान्य जनजीवन के हर पहलू को छू रहा है। विभिन्न द्वीपों पर पानी और सफाई की व्यवस्था, छोटे और लघु उद्योगों के लिए पर्याप्त वित्त व्यवस्था, बंदरगाहों का विकास, कॉन्फ्रेंस और कम्युनिटी सेंटर्स का निर्माण, क्रिकेट स्टेडियम का निर्माण, आपातकालीन चिकित्सा सेवाएं, एम्बुलेंस सेवा, तटीय सुरक्षा सुनिश्चित करना, आउटडोर फिटनेस उपकरण की व्यवस्था, ड्रग डिटॉक्स सेंटर, स्टूडेंट फेरी, कृषि और मत्स्य पालन, नवीकरणीय ऊर्जा और पर्यटन, ऐसे अनेक भारतीय सहयोग के प्रोजेक्ट से मालदीव के लोगों को सीधा फायदा पहुंचता है।
The Prime Minister gifted a cricket bat to President Soli, signed by the Indian cricket team after holding bilateral talks. India is helping in training Maldivian cricket players and bringing it up to the requisite standard. India is also looking into constructing a stadium in the island nation as requested by it. Well, the MEA is addressing a press conference even as we speak right now. Let's take a listen.
Theme that Prime Minister has constantly dwelt upon after his meeting in Singapore. We have in the last 1 year gained good traction. A number of other countries have made positive statements on the Indo-Pacific vision or outlook. ASEAN is currently actually working on a paper on the Indo-Pacific outlook, and President Soli in his discussions with Prime Minister actually specifically said that the government of the Maldives stands with India on developing an Indo-Pacific vision and an Indo-Pacific outlook. Prime Minister, of course, also linked this to his seminal idea of Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, which in fact, in a sense, will also underpin our Indo-Pacific strategy, because I think without a common development and common security in which no country is excluded and all countries are included, we cannot have a secure Indo-Pacific. So these were really the main themes of the Prime Minister's speech. He of course said many more things in the speech. We would encourage everyone to look at the speech. Currently the Prime Minister is in a series of meetings with the Foreign Minister of the Maldives and then with leaders of prominent political parties and political leaders of the Maldives. And then he will conclude this very busy day with an official banquet hosted by the President in honor of the Prime Minister. That will conclude our official engagements, and the Prime Minister will leave tomorrow for Sri Lanka and then back for home. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
All right then, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also addressed the Parliament of Maldives called People's Majlis this evening. Prime Minister Modi said he was honoured to address the Maldivian Parliament during their first session after Mohammad Nasheed became the Maldives' parliamentary speaker. He reiterated that people of India stood with the people of Maldives to strengthen their democracy.
मेरी सरकार का मूल मंत्र सबका साथ, सबका विकास और सबका विश्वास सिर्फ भारत में ही नहीं बल्कि विश्व में और खासकर अपने पड़ोस में मेरी सरकार की विदेश नीति का भी आधार है। नेबरहुड फर्स्ट हमारी प्राथमिकता है और नेबरहुड में मालदीव की प्राथमिकता बहुत स्वाभाविक है। इसलिए आपके बीच आज मेरी उपस्थिति संयोग मात्र नहीं है।
In his address, Prime Minister Modi said that state sponsorship of terrorism is the biggest threat the world faces today. He urged world leaders to come together to combat terrorism and radicalization.
आतंकवाद हमारे समय की एक बड़ी चुनौती है। यह खतरा एक देश या एक क्षेत्र के लिए नहीं, ये खतरा पूरी मानवता के लिए है। कोई दिन नहीं, कोई दिन ऐसा नहीं जाता है जब आतंकवाद कहीं किसी जगह अपना भयानक रूप दिखाकर किसी निर्दोष की जान न लेता। आतंकवादियों के न तो अपने बैंक होते हैं, न टंकसाल और न ही हथियारों की फैक्ट्री। फिर भी उन्हें धन और हथियारों की कभी कमी नहीं होती। कहां से पाते हैं ये सब? कौन देता है उन्हें ये सुविधाएं? आतंकवाद की स्टेट स्पॉन्सरशिप सबसे बड़ा खतरा बना हुआ है। यह बहुत बड़ा दुर्भाग्य है कि लोग अभी भी गुड टेररिस्ट और बैड टेररिस्ट का भेद करने की गलती कर रहे हैं। कृत्रिम मतभेदों में पड़कर हमने बहुत समय गंवा दिया। पानी अब सर से ऊपर निकल रहा है। आतंकवाद की चुनौती से बली प्रकार से निपटने के लिए सभी मानवतावादी शक्तियों का एकजुट होना जरूरी है।
It's time to analyze the Prime Minister's visit to the Maldives. Now joining me to do that on the program right now are Vice Admiral retired Satish Soni, also with us on the program, KV Prasad, Senior Associate Editor of the Tribune. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on the program. KV Prasad, I'd like to begin with you. What were the key takeaways or the highlights for you from the Prime Minister's visit to the Maldives?
Well, I think first of all, it connects to a region which is very important for us. And remember, we were just discussing the other day the importance of BIMSTEC and the fact that SARC. So we had this issue where SARC figures, but Malay doesn't come into that. So we kind of had an outreach. And remember something that 2018 when Prime Minister went to President Sole's inauguration. So we have a connect there. It's an Indian Ocean region, and most importantly, the whole construct that we are trying to develop on the Indo-Pacific. This is something which was reiterated, and we just heard the Foreign Secretary tell us about it, because this is something which is concerning a lot of people as to what does it mean. How does India and figure out the Indo-Pacific? Because there are two sets of it. India has been talking of it as an economic construct where cooperation, and today the Prime Minister elaborated on the Sagar thing. So the whole idea is we kind of develop this area, and connectivity is something which is very important. And this is one thing which is very important because in the region, and today if you look at the set of bilaterals that we have done, there are a lot of things. It's culture, cooperation, beyond, of course there's a component of defense, which is very important because of the strategic location that we see as Maldives being where it is. That is one issue. And also if you hear the Prime Minister speak to the Majlis, 2 or 3 very important points he makes there is something which touches the core of what Maldivians are concerned about, climate change. Because that's what he mentions in his speech. He talks about terrorism. That's again one of the speeches that issues. Development, of course, we are in. And if you remember, today's speaker is Mr. Nasheed. When he was the president of Maldives, he held an underwater cabinet meeting to underscore the importance of what climate change can do to an island country like Maldives.
Right.
If the global temperatures are going to go up, Maldives will not be there. That's what his fear is. So I think that's very important because when we are talking about the international cooperation on climate change, how are we going to deal with it? Maldives is something which is very concerned, and I think this is some of the significant takeaways that I look at it.
Absolutely. And Admiral, as far as you are concerned, from a defense and strategic point of view, there was something there as well, as far as this visit is concerned?
Of course. All maritime neighbors are important, but I dare say Maldives is more important than others for many reasons. For one, that it lies just 1,000 kilometers southwest of us, and it has 1,100 or in fact 1,196 or nearly 1,200 islands straddling the most important sea lines of communication through which over 100,000 ships transit every year in the Indian Ocean. And I think the importance of Maldives lies in providing maritime security to our western flank. And it's an extremely important country because it is vulnerable to climate change, vulnerable to maritime security issues, and it has a propensity of being exploited by bigger powers. I don't know, not many viewers may be aware that the highest point in Maldives is just 5.1 meters. And during the tsunami of 2004, there were 57 of these islands were completely devastated, and there were only 9 or 10 islands which were not affected. 110 Maldivians died. So it's extremely vulnerable to climate change. It is extremely vulnerable to the strategic moves of bigger powers. And as we have seen in the past, especially our neighbor in the north has been very active, and they have exploited these vulnerabilities. And the Indian Navy has been very close to the Maldives. We have very active naval cooperation. We train their personnel. They come and visit us. We have gifted a patrol boat. We have a float support team there. 2 helicopters have been gifted, and these helicopters serve as medical ambulances, ferrying critically ill patients to Maldives hospital. We carry out regular EZ surveillance for them. And one of the major events during the Prime Minister's visit has been the commissioning of a training center, a Ab initio training center for their new recruits. So the co-op and Maldives would certainly need more of our naval help, and I think India as a country and Indian Navy as a service must be forthcoming to help them in whatever manner they wish, they want our help, so that they can't be exploited by others for their selfish gains.
Sure. Very quickly, KP Prasad, as far as this visit itself is concerned, in the first visit in Prime Minister Modi's second term, he has chosen Maldives, and then he's going to go to Sri Lanka as well. What is the kind of message that is sent out?
Very clearly, the PM himself said that neighborhood first. That's our policy, and this is part of our policy because we're going to send a message is that neighbors have to, and because he also mentions Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vishwas. That means confidence of everybody, and elaborates by saying that it's not just within the country but outside, in the region. And that's where we see, because connectivity is something very important. And don't forget, as Admiral Soni did mention, refer to the northern neighbor, China has a lot invested in that region. And it's also looking very important to the maritime Silk Route. So Maldives is an important segment for them.
Right.
So India has, we have traditional ties, we have a lot of people-to-people contact. So this is something which we are looking forward to take it forward.
Sure. And Admiral, before I move on to the other stories of the day, a quick reaction from you as well. Is it safe to say that the India-Maldives bilateral relationship is now in a good place?
It is extremely safe to say that, but I don't think we should become overconfident. As a bigger neighbor, it is our responsibility to maintain good relations. We must be extremely careful about the sensitivities of their people, and we must be forthcoming in providing them whatever assistance they need, especially in the area of maritime security. They are a small country, but they are extremely important for us insofar as maritime security is concerned.
Sure, absolutely. All right, KV Prasad, then Admiral, thank you so much for joining me on the program and sharing your views and putting things into perspective for us. Now let's remember, after Maldives, Prime Minister Modi will visit Sri Lanka, that is on Sunday. During the visit, he will hold bilateral talks with Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Our correspondent Krishna Mohan Sharma spoke to the Indian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka about the visit and what would be the agenda of the meeting. Let's take a look.
I am joined by Indian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, Taranjit Singh Sandhu Sahab. Prime Minister is visiting Colombo. And when Sri Lanka is looking for any tall leader to come and to participate in their state of sorrow.
As you know that this is Prime Minister Modi's third visit in the last 4 years. Sri Lanka has occupied a very important position in his neighborhood first policy. India has been present whenever Sri Lanka has had a crisis, whether it was floods, drought, or any kind of intelligence sharing or any kind of other emergencies. This time too, Prime Minister Modi, in his first outing, he is visiting Sri Lanka. And his presence here will send a message not only to Sri Lankans, to Indians, but the world at large, that India stands with Sri Lanka in this hour of stress, and this will give boost to the economy and tourism. The main agenda is essentially solidarity with Sri Lanka. At this time, we are not particularly looking for X or Y, but you know that India has been providing development, people's-oriented development assistance to Sri Lanka. This is spread all over Sri Lanka. This includes investment in houses, earlier in the north, then in the central provinces, and finally now in the south districts also. So housing is one sector. Then of course some livelihood projects in Hambantota. Thousands of people have benefited from Indian projects. Then you are aware that one of the most popular schemes in Sri Lanka is 911 ambulance. That has been in fact not only funded, but also we have imparted skills from our people to Sri Lankan people.
That was Taranjeet Singh Sandhu. The High Commissioner of India in Sri Lanka said that after Prime Minister visit, India will take Sri Lanka out of economic distress and tourism distress. With video journalist Nilesh Pandey, Krishnamohan Sharma, Rajya Sabha Television, Colombo.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday addressed BJP workers for the first time in Kerala after last month's Lok Sabha elections. He made a stopover in the coastal state before embarking on his visit to the Maldives. Addressing the workers at Guruvayur, he thanked the people for the massive mandate given to the BJP and the NDA. He said that the elected leaders' mandate is to work for the development of each and every individual despite the results in the state. The BJP did not win a single seat from 20 Lok Sabha seats in the state in the recently concluded Lok Sabha elections. The Prime Minister also offered prayers at Guruvayur Temple in Thrissur district.
जनता जनार्दन ईश्वर का रूप है। ये इस चुनाव में देश ने भली भांति देखा है। राजनीतिक दल जनता के मिजाज को नहीं पहचान पाए, पॉलिटिकल पंडित जनता के मिजाज को नहीं बता पाए, सर्वे की दुनिया से जुड़े लोग भी इधर उधर होते रहे, लेकिन जनता जनार्दन ने भारतीय जनता पार्टी और एनडीए के पक्ष में एक प्रचंड जनादेश दिया है। मैं सर झुका करके जनता जनार्दन के चरणों में नमन करता हूं। कई भी पंडितों को मन में विचार आता होगा कि केरल में बीजेपी का खाता भी नहीं खुला और फिर भी मोदी वहां जाकर के धन्यवाद करने पहुंच गया। ये मोदी की सोच क्या है, कई लोगों के दिमाग में रहता होगा, लेकिन हमारे संस्कार हैं, हमारी सोच है और हम इस मत के हैं कि लोकतंत्र में चुनाव अपनी जगह पे है, लेकिन चुनाव के बाद जीत करके आने वाली सविशेष जिम्मेवारी होती है 130 करोड़ नागरिकों की। जो हमें जिताते हैं वो भी हमारे हैं, जो इस बार हमें जिताने में चूक गए हैं वे भी हमारे हैं। केरल भी मेरा उतना ही है जितना मेरा बनारस है।
Well, in other news now, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu expressed concern over the tendency of opposition members defecting to the ruling party. Observing that such acts were making a mockery of democracy, he said people interested in strengthening democracy's foundation must seriously ponder over the issue. Speaking at the Hyderabad Management Association's 46th Annual Awards function, the Vice President expressed anguish over demising values and morals in public life, saying that the frequent disruptions caused by political parties in Parliament were reducing the pious. He opined that the unfortunate tendency was a clear negation of the vision of our constitutional makers. The Vice President observed that having a stable government at the centre provides an opportunity to ensure that the growth was maintained.
It is a matter of concern that political discourse is reaching new low in the recent years. We have seen the elections. We should reverse this trend at the earliest. A credible opposition is an essential prop of a healthy democracy. Criticize, nothing wrong. Accuse, nothing wrong, but don't abuse. Accusation is different from abusing people. We must also understand political parties, the candidates, winners or the losers, they are only rivals, they are not enemies. We are all Indians. Each one has some ideology, some may not have ideology, and we may be competitors. At the end of the day, everybody's aim is to serve the country, to improve the lot of the people. So that being the case, we must respect each other. You may win now, or you may lose now, but you must respect the mandate of the people.
Well, meanwhile, delivering its poll promise, the government on Saturday notified a decision to extend the benefit of 6,000 rupees per year under the PM Kisan scheme. The decision will benefit all 14.5 crore farmers irrespective of the size of their land holding in the country. Notifying the decision, the Union Agriculture Ministry has written to all state governments asking them to identify beneficiaries subject to the existing exclusion factors. A decision in this regard was taken in the first cabinet meeting of the new NDA government on May 31st. And finally, after a delay of a week, the monsoon hit the coast of Kerala on Saturday, marking the official commencement of the 4-month rainfall season in the country. Several parts of Kerala received a good amount of rainfall. The Kerala State Disaster Management Authority has issued red and orange alerts in different parts of the state from June 9th to 11th. Meanwhile, the IMD has said heatwave conditions are likely to continue in north and central India next week. IMD has predicted a severe heatwave in Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan and Vidarbha in Maharashtra from Saturday till Tuesday. With that, it's a wrap on this telecast tonight.